Hello everybody and welcome back to the Asian Athletic, and today we will be talking about Malaysia. Again, now there's been a lot of developments in the last few days about the scandal that has embroiled Malaysian football, but my video isn't going to be about those developments. I will make a separate video about that later. What I want to talk about is Johor, one of the biggest clubs in the Malaysian domestic league. Now, the last video was incredibly successful and a lot of people commented all sorts of different things, but this comment in particular caught my eye. This comment, as you can see on the screen, notes that there's 4 Filipino players on Johor's roster, but they don't play for the national team. Now, that's a little bit suspicious and I'm going to explain why. But firstly, I want to explain to you what the registration rules are for the Malaysian league, because this is very important to understanding why the fact that they're Filipino is relevant. In the Malaysian domestic league, clubs can register up to 15 foreign players in their roster. Clubs are then allowed to have a maximum of 9 foreign players in their matchday squad. They can have a maximum of 7 in the starting lineup and a maximum of 2 on the bench. Now, of the 7 starting players, one of them must be from an AFC country. So this includes China, South Korea, Japan, Australia, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, any AFC member country. But 2 of them must be ASEAN. This includes just all of Southeast Asia. So think about Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, countries like that. Now, having ASEAN players is really good actually, because it allows you to field as many foreign players as possible. So you can have 5 foreign players from any country in the world. You can have them from England, France, the United States, whatever. 1 Asian player, so they could be from South Korea or Japan, and then 2 ASEAN players, which, as I described, can be Philippines or Indonesia or Singapore. If you can max this out, you can theoretically get the strongest possible lineup using the least amount of Malaysians. Now, I like Malaysian football, but let's not beat around the bush here. Malaysia's domestic talent is not quite the same level when compared to what they have in, for example, South Korea or Japan. And you actually do see a lot of foreign players in the Malaysian league because they've come to play for teams that really want these foreign talents. Now, the thing is that having 2 ASEAN players isn't this gigantic boost that I'm making it out to be. Because at the end of the day, what is ASEAN? It's Southeast Asia. This includes Vietnam, Thailand, the Philippines. And whilst these are footballing nations that I truly respect, having a player from Singapore isn't quite the same as having a player from Italy. It's a whole different caliber. That being said though, if the 2 ASEAN players you have are really good, then essentially you've made the most out of those 2 slots you have available in your team. But this is what the comment is pointing out. It is pointing out that there are 4 Filipino players that play for Johor. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. They are allowed to play. Obviously, they can be in the starting lineup. Only 2 of them can be in the starting lineup at a time. But there's no problem with that, right? Except if they're not actually Filipino. Is this sounding familiar? Because this sounds very similar to the problem that I discussed in the last video about Malaysia and its apparent Malaysian players. Now, Johor is arguably the biggest club in Malaysia. They play in the Champions League, they have plenty of trophies, they're sort of the face of Malaysian domestic football, and a lot of their success comes from the fact that they are actually owned by the Malaysian royal family. So they have a lot of money, and the money part is going to be important in a second. Now, like this comment pointed out, they have 4 Filipino players. These guys fill out that quota. The problem is though, is that it's very, very fishy. So I'm going to start with Antonio Glauder. He signed for Johor on a free transfer in June after he was released from Cadiz, from Spain, a proper club. He was born in Spain though, but he was given Filipino citizenship sometime this summer. He came through Cadiz, Barcelona and Villarreal's youth setups. He mostly played semi-pro and second division Spanish football. He played for Arribas, Albacete and Cadiz a few times. This is like an actually good footballer, okay, for Asian standards and even higher for Malaysian football standards. I could not find any information about how he got Filipino nationality, and neither can anybody on social media. I kind of went through the archives and tried to see if there was any sources, even if they weren't particularly reliable sources, to find out how he actually got Filipino nationality, and I found nothing. Glauder just has Filipino nationality. He got it at some point over the summer. I couldn't even find out when he got the nationality. He just has it, and now he plays for Johor. He's a very good player. But this isn't the only one. Oscar Arribas, he also has Filipino nationality, and he also plays for Johor. He's actually been playing there for longer. He played in 2023. Born in Spain though, he was born in Madrid, and he played for AD Alcorcon, which is a pretty decently sized club in the second division of Spain, and he made loads of appearances for Alcorcon. This wasn't some drifter player that everybody eventually forgot about, or some really old player who is way past his best and is deciding to play in a different part of the world. Oscar Arribas is like an actual footballer, and he's good as well. He was part of huge games such as Johor's 3-0 win over Ulsan back in 2024, November 2024. He actually scored a goal in that game, and he also scored against Pohang in February in the Champions League. So he's a big game player for Johor. This is, again, a serious player. Enzo Lombardo, same thing. This time who's born in France. He played for Racing Santander, Huesca, and Mallorca. Again, big teams in Spain. He joined Johor in 2024, where he helped them win the FA Cup and also the Malaysia Cup in 2025. And Lombardo, again, inexplicably has Filipino citizenship. And once again, I couldn't find any information as to how he got that citizenship. There's no indication that he's a naturalized citizen, which, as far as I'm aware, in the Philippines, it has to be 10 years, a minimum of 10 years residency in the Philippines to get naturalized citizenship. I didn't find anything that proved that he had Filipino ancestry through his parents or his grandparents. Nothing. Nothing for Arribas, nothing for Glauder, nothing for Lombardo to indicate how they got Filipino citizenship through legitimate ways. Then finally, we have Teto, who also plays for Johor. Born in Tenerife in Spain, he played for Tenerife and then he joined Johor this summer. Again, Filipino citizenship. And once again, this isn't some really old, washed up player who's near retirement getting a final paycheck. He's 23 years old. He should still be playing in one of the top leagues in Spain. Interestingly though, he's not registered in the Malaysian Super League. Only the Asian Champions League Elite. Very, very suspicious, because it means that he doesn't contribute to the foreign player registration quota for the domestic league, but he's registered for the Champions League. So he's going to play in the Champions League games, but not the domestic league games. That is just an example of the fact that Johor are kind of spoiled with riches. They have a lot of foreign players. So that's not too suspicious on its own. And also, let's not forget, there's 11 Filipinos in the Malaysian league. So what's wrong with 4 more? Well, here's the thing. None of the 4 players that I just described to you have played for the Filipino national team, even though they're all very good. Now, the Philippines national team is by no means terrible, but let's face it, some of these players walk straight in there. Okay, well, maybe they didn't get called up because the Malaysian Super League just isn't good enough, and the Philippines, they don't want to look in there and recruit from there. I mean, it makes sense. Why would the England national team, for example, be calling up players from the Irish league or MLS? It doesn't make any sense. Obviously, you're going to look at the top leagues, right? Surely Malaysia's not a top league, right? Surely Malaysia's rubbish, and no Filipino players play there. They never play for the Philippine national team, except they have. There's 11 Filipinos in the league. 4 of them play for Johor. That leaves 7 Filipino players in the rest of the league. Now, with the exception of 1, the rest of them have played for the Philippines national team. They have a considerable number of caps for the Philippines. So clearly this is a league that the Philippines national team is monitoring and scouting and calling players up to play for the national team from. This isn't a league that the Philippines ignores. Only 1 of these Filipino players that don't play for Johor hasn't played for the Philippines national team, but he was born in the Philippines and he made 5 appearances for the under-23s. So this guy is very legit. He's literally born in the Philippines. Now, the Philippines, to my knowledge, has only ever had 1 naturalized player with no Filipino ancestry, which is Bienvenido Marañón. Now, Marañón is a pretty decent player, but under Freddy Gonzalez, the national team didn't call him up again. The last time Marañón made an appearance was in 2023. Okay, so maybe that's why they haven't been called up to the national team, because they have a culture of only playing like pure-blooded Filipinos. I don't really know. And to be fair, under Gonzalez, he did say that they only wanted players with Filipino blood. He said in an interview, "I'm not critiquing what they did with Marañón. Marañón is a great player. I wish we actually had somebody like him, but it's not something I have any interest in doing, getting a Spanish player or somebody and making them Filipino. We want to do it with Filipino players." But Gonzalez isn't the manager anymore. He hasn't been for some time. So surely they'd be open to choosing naturalised players again, like they did with Marignon. Obviously, Marignon, he's 39 years old. He doesn't have a club anymore. They're not going to call up Marignon anymore. But you could call up Teto, a 23-year-old attacker who's very, very good. Enzo Lombardo. Or you could call up Oscar Arribas, probably the most prolific of the 4 Filipino players, or alleged Filipino players, that I mentioned. Except they have done. The Philippines national team called up Oscar Arribas many years ago, but Arribas didn't accept the call-up. And also, Freddy Gonzalez, yeah, sure, he said in the interview he didn't want any naturalized players, but ironically, Freddy Gonzalez called up Oscar Arribas for the national team. And Oscar Arribas, once again, no show. And once again, I couldn't really find out much information about why Arribas didn't accept the call up to the national team. It's just sort of assumed that he wanted to focus on club football. But it sort of makes you think maybe he didn't accept the call up because he knew deep down inside that he isn't actually allowed to play for the Philippines national team. Is the lack of call ups because the PFF know that these players are fake? If they played these fake players in their national team, they'd get punished by FIFA and the AFC. The Philippines have a massive incentive to cheat. They let a Malaysian club have stronger players in exchange for a better national team roster. That sounds like a really good deal to me if I wanted to cheat in football. But they haven't taken up the chance, which makes me think that the PFF know that something is fishy about these 4 players. Maybe they weren't part of the process of getting these players Filipino citizenship. Now, there's been no formal protest from the PFF, so maybe they want to keep out of it and pretend to be blind to what's happening. That being said, it isn't a responsibility. These players have never played in the Philippines, and they don't look to anytime soon. The Malaysian Super League is a better league than the Filipino one, and these 4 players, they're not exactly looking for retirement anytime soon. Now, the Philippines at the moment politically is having a lot of issues with corruption, and they actually have quite a high-profile citizenship scandal. If you don't know, Alice Guo, mayor of Bamban, was born in Fujian in China, but got Filipino citizenship. She's now sort of embroiled in this scandal where her Filipino citizenship, I believe, has been temporarily suspended because there have been inconsistencies with her testimony and some of the documents. Apparently they might be forged. So the idea of fake Filipino citizens isn't entirely unfounded. This definitely could have happened. The Filipino government could have been bribed by Johor. Obviously, Johor is an incredibly wealthy club. They're owned by the Malaysian royal family. Possibly the Filipino government is involved with this. I don't actually know, we may never know, but something is definitely off. Johor have 4 Filipino players with no evidence that they have Filipino ancestry. None of them have been called up for the national team, except for one of them, who, when he was asked to play for the national team, ignored them and didn't play, possibly showing that he knows that he's cheating. And also, the Malaysian League is a league that the Philippines national team is scouting, because there are numerous examples of Filipino players who have played in the Malaysian League and also play for the Philippines national team. But there's more. When I was doing the research for this video, I found 2 more players who play for Johor with really suspicious backgrounds. Now, we already know about the 7 players who had fake Malaysian citizenship, but I found 2 more who, I'm not gonna lie, based off of what we know about the other 7 players, look like they could be fake citizens too. I'm gonna start with Nacho Mendez, who joined Johor this summer, 27 years old. Okay, so once again, just like the Filipino players, this is no washed up unk. He left Gijon in Spain. He made 200 appearances for Gijon. His wage is unknown, but it's rumored to be 4 times what he earned at Gijon, which was around 6,500 euros a week. He had an average market value of around 1 million euros when he joined Malaysia. Now, the Malaysian Super League has an average market value of 140,000 euros. This guy is getting paid a lot of money, and like I said earlier, Johor is owned by the Malaysian royal family. This is a team that has tons of money to spend. And once again, I couldn't find any sources about how he was even related to Malaysia. Unlike the other 7 players in the main scandal who claim have grandparents from Malaysia, I couldn't find anything out about Nacho Mendez. The next player, because there's another one, Christian Abad, born in Muro de Alcoy in Spain. He joined Johor, leaving, I can't say their name, Elcho Ilicitano's youth academy. There's no proof that he has Malaysian ancestry, but apparently he has some. They claim that he has Malaysian ancestry, but they haven't specified how. Is it a grandparent? Is it a parent? Was he born there? nothing. Absolutely nothing. I couldn't find any information about how he has Malaysian ancestry, just that it's claimed he has Malaysian ancestry. Furthermore, he was included in Malaysia's 27-man preliminary squad for the Asian Cup qualifiers in March, alongside, you never guess it, Hector Hevel, who is now banned from football because he was one of the 7 players in the scandal. I mean, it's just madness. Like, where does it stop? How many of them are there? They have an incentive to lie about these 2 players having Malaysian ancestry, because if it turns out they are foreign players, then they won't be able to play because they fill out that quota of a maximum of 15 foreign players and a maximum of 7 foreign players on the pitch, only 5 of which can be non-Asian and non-ASEAN. So if you lied about these 2 Spanish players having Malaysian ancestry, then you can play them. You could theoretically play a whole team of non-Malaysians, ones that you lied about, mixed in with players you didn't lie about. Because you can have 7 players on the pitch, so 5 of them could be Brazilian, English, German, French, Spanish, Italian, and then 1 of them could be from South Korea, and then 2 of them could be from Spain, but you pretended that they're from the Philippines. And suddenly you have 7 really good players, and that leaves you with 4 players left to fill out your starting 11, of which 2 of them could actually be Spanish, and you lied about them being Malaysian. Where does it stop? It just keeps going. When the investigation into Malaysian football continues, which undoubtedly I think it will these 2 players, Nacho Mendez and Christian Abad, will they also be exposed? There has to be a follow-up video. This video is literally just about a single football club in Malaysia. How many other clubs are involved in this scandal? How many players are involved in this? Just exactly how many people are involved in this? The scandal that I talked about in the last video, that involved the government. The Malaysian government was involved in forging the birth certificates. Do you know how many people that must have involved? And with something like this, how many more people then does it involve? Because, you know, if it turns out Nacho Mendez and Christian Abad are 2 fake Malaysians, that involves a lot of people to fake the birth certificates there. And then what about the Filipinos, like Antonio Glauder, Oscar Arribas, Enzo Lombardo, Teto? They also must have all had citizenship faked and forged by the Malaysians, but potentially also the Filipinos, because, I mean, isn't that how you get citizenship? Anyway, I've got to wrap up the video somehow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Am I going full conspiracy theory, crazy guy, tinfoil hat, or have I genuinely found something seriously suspicious? If you want to keep up to date with Asian football, make sure you follow our Instagram. On there, you can find all sorts of cool mood boards and updates. They'll come straight to your feed. And as always, thanks for watching and see you later.